It may be finally happening, boys. We may finally be getting Donald Trump on the Joe Rogan Experience. Welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idle. And yes, if you haven't heard the news, and I don't know how you couldn't, this is some big stuff right here. Donald Trump reveals he'll be appearing on Joe Rogan's podcast, calls him a good guy. Now, I got a couple of different sources to use for this because obviously New York Post is a rather right-leaning source. I also got one from The Hill, which allsides.com claims as center. I would say they're a bit center-left, honestly, with the way they write their articles. But I do like The Hill. The Hill, if you're going to go with like a center-left leaning outlet, The Hill is probably the best way to go. So we're going to compare and contrast the two articles. We're going to look at them. We're going to talk about how broken the internet would be if Trump himself went on Joe Rogan's shows. Before we get into it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'm a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day, and I know this ain't particularly nerdy, but let's be real. I'm a big Joe Rogan fan. I made no qualms about hiding the fact that I'm a Trump supporter, so I think this would be pretty based. Former President Donald Trump has revealed he will soon be on Joe Rogan's wildly popular podcast. The Republican presidential nominee teases upcoming appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience when asked by the Nut Boys podcasters if he'd consider it. Now, to be fair, this isn't the first time Trump's been asked about this, nor is it the first time that Rogan has talked about it. In fact, a lot of us have been theorizing and hypothesizing that Trump was going to be on for like a year now, because a while back, Joe said, for years we all know that Joe Rogan was like, no, I'm not going to have him on. I do not want to use my platform to potentially help him get elected, which fine. 100% Joe's right. I could not care less. Frankly, I watch Joe Rogan all the time. Sometimes I don't jive with the guests, but it's fine. The conversation's there. Not every episode's a good one, but there's still always something there. But if he doesn't want to have someone on, you ain't obligated to have anyone on. But then, about a year ago, 6 months ago, whenever it was, there was a shift, and he was like, no, I'd be interested to bring Trump on, but not to try and get him elected, but to, see what it's like behind the scenes. And they entertained a conversation about it. And from that moment, I was like, dude, it's happening. I know what's going to happen. It's a matter of when, not a matter of if. I think we finally may have hit that win. Oh, sure I would. I mean, I think I'm doing it, actually. Trump responded, calling Rogan a good guy. When asked by podcast host Kyle Forgard, they meant he was going to do Joe Rogan, Trump confirmed, yeah, I am, without letting on when it would be happening. Yo! It gotta be quick, though, because we like 2.5, 3 weeks away from the election. Homie gotta be on before then. Like again, I'm not saying that, Joe Rogan's gonna convince people to vote for Trump or anything like that. I could not care less. I want this conversation to happen now. I want this conversation to happen before Trump is in office, before he's his hands are tied with all this political jargon BS. We got 3.5 weeks, 2.5 weeks, however long it is, till November 5th. This could be the most groundbreaking, earth-shattering thing to happen to the internet probably ever, honestly. Oh yeah, sweet baby Inc., Chris Kindred fired. Bro, I don't give a fuck. Donald Trump sat down with Joe fucking Rogan. That would be so sick. Rogan has not yet commented on a possible Trump appearance, but the Podcast X account posted a poll Saturday evening asking viewers if Trump should appear on the podcast, which racked up more than 465 million likes. Now, I don't know if this poll was deleted or what, because I saw this. I went to Joe Rogan's Twitter page, X page, and it wasn't there. I didn't see it. I don't know if he was just gauging interest, if it was unrelated. I didn't see it, and maybe, they don't have a screenshot of it here, so maybe it's been gone. Maybe it's been scrubbed. I don't know. They mentioned it had 465 million likes, which is bananas, by the way. But it didn't say what the ratio was. I imagine, obviously, the answer was yes. I don't think there's any Joe Rogan fan out there, at least Joe Rogan Experience fan, that doesn't want him on the show. But I'm wondering, was it 60-40? Was it 99-1? Was it 70-30? I wish they had a screenshot, and I wish that I could find it, but it just unfortunately isn't there. The comic had previously said he wouldn't have Trump on, but recently changed tack, teasing his plans in a recent episode. It would be interesting to hear his perspective on a lot of things. Yeah, this is the dialogue I was referring to earlier, like 6 months, a year ago, whenever it was. I remember when this episode dropped, and the change in tune was fascinating. Rogan said he'd love to know what it's actually like to be in the White House versus people's perception of the job. What is the machine like? What is the deep state really like, he asked. Rogan caught heat in August for having former presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on the podcast, which some in Trump's camp viewed as an endorsement, which Rogan denied. And that was retarded, and that wasn't an endorsement, and we talked about that at length on Neon Leon, if I remember correctly. But, The Hill got a bit of a different take, and this is why I say, you examine both sides of the argument, the truth somewhere in the middle. Like The Hill basically gives us all the same information, but with a bunch of extra shit. And this is how you know. This is how you know to call out and catch propaganda. Not the New York Post wasn't propaganda. Pretty much all news is at all points, except your boy Leon. That's why you're here. I'm not propaganda. I'm looking out for your best interest. Trump hits at Joe Rogan podcast appearance before election. Did he hint that it was before the election? Again, there's no time frame whatsoever. He just hinted that he would be on the show. We all just want it to be before the election. Former President Trump said that he likes Joe Rogan and indicated plans to go on his popular podcast before Election Day. Joe Rogan has to have you on. Would you do that? Trump was asked during an appearance with the Full Send podcast, showing a clip released over the weekend. Oh, sure I would, Trump replied. In fact, I think I'm doing it. The former president praised Rogan for being so well known because of the UFC, calling him a good guy. Okay, he's not well known because of the UFC. I mean, don't get me wrong, that absolutely adds to it, but, homie got the biggest podcast in the world, and he's also one of the most relevant stand-up comedians of the last 15 years. It's not just the UFC. Trump's comments were first highlighted by Mediaite, which said the full interview from the Nelk Boys will be released on Monday. Trump has been partaking in a string of interviews and podcast appearances with leading right-wing internet personalities and influencers in recent weeks. This is what I wanted to call out. This one paragraph right here is so jacked up. Don't get me wrong. Trump has done podcasts for those types of individuals, just like so many others. He's also done a lot of podcasts with comedians. Theo Vaughn, Andrew Schultz. I mean, Trump just goes on shows and talks. Tim Pool, which, a lot of people say is right-wing. Frankly, I consider the Timcast show to be, fairly down the middle. I don't agree with everything being said on it. Disagree with it a lot of the times, but I wouldn't call that a right-wing show. Again, unless you consider anything to the right of Bernie Sanders' right wing. But the point is, them saying that he's been making several appearances on right-wing internet personalities and influencers, you're calling Theo Vaughn a right-winger. You're calling Andrew Schultz a right-winger. And that just doesn't sit right with me because they're just comedians that have talk shows, that have podcasts, and Trump actually understands the modern communication methods to go on shows like this, to go on, and I get it, Kamala went on that one, Call Her Daddy podcast or whatever, and was fed a bunch of bullshit. I don't care, that's, Call Her Daddy is a big show, I get it, but Kamala does not have the gravitas that the Trump has in terms of, carrying a conversation, getting people to tune in, and then on top of that, he's putting it out there with comedians, which is the job of the stand-up comedian, the way they are perceived is of the everyman. You look at Theo Vaughn, you listen to Theo Vaughn talk, and he's got that down-home southern accent, and he says anything to make it funny, dog. Like, when you see Trump interacting with someone like that, and they're bouncing jokes back and forth off each other, when you see Trump on Flagrant podcast with Andrew Schultz, and he is telling jokes, he's laughing, he's fitting in with these stand-up comedians, it makes Trump so much more relatable, and I think that, honestly, that's probably even a better format than the Joe Rogan Experience, because the Joe Rogan Experience is a conversation. Don't get me wrong, the others are very conversational as well, but they ain't afraid to be comedians. Andrew Schultz, Theo Vaughn, they know that's the draw, is that they're funny, so they got to continue to be funny on their show. Joe Rogan doesn't have to. Now, he does at times. It's very dependent on his guest, and Joe Rogan plays off his guests very well, so it sort of depends on the angle Trump wants to take it. If Trump's going to be all loosey-goosey, then Joe Rogan probably is as well. There'll probably be some jokes and whatnot. It just really depends on the angle. Yeah, I think this would be great. He also regularly appeared on Fox News and other conservative media outlets and appearances he used to bash Vice President Harris and promote his agenda. Again, we are seeing the propaganda in this article, not necessarily in the other one. The former president is refusing an invitation from Harris and several news networks to participate in another debate before the November 5th election and saying it's too late in the cycle, despite agreeing to debates after mid-October against both Hillary Clinton in 2016 and Joe Biden in 2020. Rogan has not hosted Trump on his podcast, which carries an audience of millions per episode, and has drawn criticism in recent years over commentary on public health and other controversial issues. It is unclear when exactly Trump might appear on Rogan's program, but the show published a post from the social media platform X over the weekend asking, do you want to see Donald Trump on the podcast? And again, they don't give us screenshots. They don't tell us how well received it was. At least the other outlet showed us that it had, 425 million likes or whatever insane number it was. But yeah, I like The Hill. I think The Hill does a pretty decent job, at least as far as left-leaning goes. I do not know why, allsides.com considers them to be center. They are center-left at best. But to be fair, allsides.com says they lean right. They're actually full-blown into the right wing. I actually think that this is, accurate for New York Post. But all in all, this is insane news that we have seen coming if you've been paying attention for a while now. But it was always that tightrope walk of would it actually happen? Would we actually get Donald Trump himself on Joe Rogan? And how is he going to portray himself? Because in my opinion, you watch the guy, he can talk for hours. He got no issue with it. And if Joe was actually just asking him questions and having conversation, as he so aptly does, about nonpartisan things and just letting it flow. Also, I don't think Joe would be afraid to call Trump out on his bullshit. If Trump says something completely and utterly retarded, which he is known to do, just because I'm a Trump fan doesn't mean I don't fucking acknowledge that he could say some wild, out there, kooky things. Joe Rogan is the type that will call him on that. So, Trump also has to maintain a certain level of measure, a certain level of honest, because Joe Rogan don't fuck around. It is going to be must-see television, and I am so there for it. But those are just my opinions. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Or let me know on X, where you can find me at Bolt the Word. And please do subscribe. I am a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day. Not necessarily always about what's going on in the realm of politics, but anime, movies, music, Magic the Gathering, you name it. Check me out on Instagram at wordsofparadise_Leon. And become a member for $4.99 a month. You can join the Discord. Choose the articles I go over on a day-to-day basis. Choose the videos I react to on my Friday night live streams. And, of course, get involved with over 130 other vital idols. We are a bright, beautiful, glowing, vibrant community that I cannot wait to grow even further because we do care about diversity. But only one kind of diversity of thought. If that's interesting to you, join the Discord, hit subscribe, and until next time, it is all here in the Nerdosphere. This has been Words of Paradise.